you are giving us an update on something of an internal matter, because there was a recent meeting to discuss the structure of Sagicor Select Funds, right? There is this court-appointed scheme arrangement meeting. So first, just explain what that is, court-appointed scheme arrangement meeting, and why do you need to do this?
All right, so I think the last time I was here where there was a request for an update of what's happening with the select fund. So we'd have made an announcement sometime last year to indicate that we are looking to change the structure of the funds from being a company that is listed on the stock exchange to move into a unit trust setup, so that you know be participating in a mutual fund instead of having shares listed on the market. The way in which it is that we went about that is what you call a scheme of arrangements, which means that you have to go through a court process. And what would have happened is that we'd have made a submission to the court indicating the issue or the problem that we'd have identified, and that we'd like to make a change in order to, give shareholders a solution that would be beneficial to them. And the court would have given us an approval to go ahead and have what they call a court-appointed meeting, which gave shareholders the opportunity to vote on the proposed scheme of arrangements, which is a shift to a unit trust setup. And so in long and short, that's basically it in terms of the court-appointed meeting. And initially, it may have been referenced as an extraordinary general meeting, but based on the correct legal term, it is a court-appointed meeting, which allows for shareholders to come in and vote on the proposal of a scheme of arrangement. And that scheme of arrangement points to the fact that we are recommending that there would be a shift from the current setup, which would then now have a unit trust setup. And the thinking behind this, or the driving factor around this, is the fact that when you look at the stock price relative to the net asset value for the stocks, there's a wide disparity.
Right.
So if you consider like Select F is trading probably at 45 cents, the NAV is over 50 cents. When you look at Select MD, that's even wider. We're thinking of a stock that's trading within 80 cents. I mean, it actually ran up post the meeting, but it typically trades around the 80 cents mark. But it's actually, in terms of net asset value, is over $1.20. And so there's value there that shareholders are not able to access. Shareholders are just missing out on. And a move to a unit trust would give that instant uptick in terms of the value of the units that shareholders will now have under a new arrangement, which would now make them unit holders. So instantly, what would be value for them is effectively that same $1.20.
Ah.
Instantly, they'd be moving up to that 50 cents. So you'd see that movement right away.
So then the funds would be delisted from the JSE?
Yeah. So that is the intention, that once it is that, so what happens now is that there is actually a return. The voting would have taken place, and we'd have seen where there was, they voted in favor, so shareholders voted in favor of the scheme. And there's actually now the process where we'd actually have to return to the courts and present what we'd have gotten in the court-appointed meeting. And we're expecting that the courts will give us approval to continue on this path. And we'd have to do applications to the FSC to register a unit trust. And once that is successful, we'll also do registration with the Companies Office for the new structure. And then once that is in place, we'd make that request to the Jamaica Stock Exchange to have the shares delisted.
So how would this impact, like, let's say I currently hold shares in Select F or Select MD. Is there anything I need to do, or everything is just handled behind the scenes?
Not at the initial. There's going to be a change, because currently you would be a shareholder, and under this new system, you now become a Sagicor Investments client. So there will be a process that follows once it is that it takes effect, which is following from the court, and the court gives that go ahead, and there's an effective date. Once that takes place, there's an automatic transfer, because it's a court approved move. So it's not if you voted in favor, yes or no, everybody will be moved over once the court gives that appointment. But seeing that you would now become a Sagicor investment client, there are certain KYC documents and updates that you'd have to do in order for us to be compliant with the FSC, which would then mean that there will be some things that we may be requesting from shareholders.
Okay, so all right. So what is the timeline for implementation of this?
Well, because there are a few steps, so we go back to court, and then there's application to FSC, there's registration. The timeline that we're currently working to have all of this done is within the first quarter of 2026. But that's just the guesstimated timeline based on the estimates that we think each process would take.
So a couple of questions and comments online. NutriFit Life wants to know, what is the premium on the shares?
So currently, well, we just compare the stock price to the NAV. So if it is that you look at the net asset value for Select F, that is around a little over 50 cents. And if you look at the Select MD, that's about $1.20, a little over $1.20. So you could compare that to the current stock price and see what that premium would be, or what that difference is that you'll be able to unlock once there is a conversion.
So Roswell is pointing out that Select Fund IPO was $1. I remember both F and MD were $1. And he says those who had it until now lost. Long term, it didn't work out. But what you're saying, Jodian, is that once it's converted to unit trust for MD, it would basically be worth $1.20.
Yes, correct.
So you gain long term, you gain once this change is made. Not so for F though.
Yeah, I mean, there would be a gain, but not necessarily to the principal or the original that you would have entered into.
Okay.
So can I add a quick one, Kalila?
Yes, David.
So just to give some context to viewers, when you're a unit holder in a unit trust, most times you're able to redeem or sell your units at the NAV. So if the NAV of the fund, for example, let's say Select MD. Select MD's current NAV is 1.257. You would submit your request to the fund manager to redeem your units. The fund manager goes through the process behind the scenes and pays you your cash. What currently takes place now is that the share price at 88 cents as the current closing price, and the best bid is around probably 86, 83 cents, which means that if you want to sell your shares, you'd have to sell at the 83, 84 cents or whatever price the best bid is at. So that's what Jody means in terms of that gain that would occur or could occur in that new structure. So whereas in the current setup that you have to rely on someone else on the market willing to pay a higher price, hopefully to get a good exit. In the case of initial structure, you're getting to redeem at the net asset value price. Just one additional caveat to note, and this was mentioned in the document itself, the explanatory statement, there is an early exit fee 6 months post the unit trust launch date. What does that mean? If the NAV is $1 when the unit trust is launched and you exit on the same day, there'd be a 4% fee, which should likely mean you to get to 96 cents, as your payout. So that's just some context I'd like to add there quickly.
Thanks, David. Anything else you want to add before we leave, Jodian?
I think just to point out that there is going to be, when you look at a unit trust, it's, as David pointed out, it will be open-ended. So therefore, persons can buy in on the NAV, and so new units will be created at that point. And if it is that person's buy or redeem, then those are cancelled at that point of redemption. So it is really for a way to allow for shareholders to really benefit from the actual value of the share itself, as opposed to the current context where it is that it's not trading as closely to the NAV as we'd like to see.
All right. Thanks, Jodian. Thanks, David, for those explanations.